So Christian Craig is heading back to Star, and what do the Deegans have to do with this? Welcome back to Vital MX. I'm your host, Michael Lindsay, and as always, any of our rumor mill or news break features are brought to you by our fine friends at Yoshimura R&D of America. Check them out at yoshimura-rd.com. This is kind of like a three-portion video, I guess I'd say. There's the rumor news related to Christian Craig and a new 2-year contract to potentially return to Star Racing. There is a portion of this video that'll be covering the lineup for Star Racing. We've kind of covered it in some prior videos. And then the third and final part, which I think any of you racing fans might find pretty interesting, and especially if you're a Deegan fan, you'll find potentially interesting, is a little bit of theory I have on where some of these moves are going and how this is going to pan out for Haiden Deegan's eventual move to the 450 class. So let's start first off with the Christian news. Coming into this weekend, either pre-race or post-race, our own Lewis Phillips spoke to Christian Craig for an interview, and afterwards Christian did mention to him that he had signed a new 2-year contract. On the comment, we knew that it was not with extending at Rockstar Energy Husqvarna. We initially, like most people, thought in the sport that he would end up with the Twisted Tea Hep Suzuki program, but it turns out that is not where he signed. We knew that. It wasn't Phoenix Honda. So on our post-race podcast, me and Lewis had a bet, and I said, it's got to be Firepower Honda, because it was the only open spot I could even think of. Well, right after we were done recording, we got news from a source, and then I believe Matha's got similar heading into his post-race interview that shows that, no, Christian Craig, in fact, had signed to return to Star. Now, again, this is not official, but what this looks like is that Craig will take on a multi-role situation with the team that he previously won a championship for. He would be a racer in the 450 class for the team, and he would also be a riding coach and support for the 250 effort while being a direct support to Haiden Deegan. Of course, Christian Craig kind of has this reputation of taking people under his wing. When he was at the Geico Factory Connection team, Chase Sexton, many of their young riders, he kind of took under his wing. And then early on, when he was with Star, he sort of took Haiden under his wing. And you still see the family all post about him being almost like their fourth child and their babysitter, et cetera, et cetera. But they have a great relationship. Now, starting with the assistant role with the 250 side, the riding coach. We've heard over the years, last couple of years, that Star Racing has been looking at a potential riding coach for the team. They have Gareth Swanepoel as a physical trainer, but we've heard Levi Kitchen as he exited the program saying he felt like there wasn't a focus on the riding side of things in terms of your style, functionality on the bike, the little ins and outs like that. And he has worked on that more since he has left to do his own program. We've also seen Haiden Deegan get a little bit more leash from Star than usual to work with other people this year, go ride some other facilities, and continue to work on his form and function on the bike, his style and technique. Of course, Christian Craig has fantastic technique. That's pretty evident from the moment you watch him even swing a leg over a motorcycle. So Christian fits that need very well from somebody that, of course, has very natural and very efficient technique and style on a motorcycle and has respect within that team and has worked there before. So he can definitely add on there. Again, his relationship with the Deegans is unique, and him being able to help guide Haiden as he gets closer to the later portion of his 250 career and eventually that move into the 450 class. And then lastly, still being a racer for the team now, 450. Now, this is where it gets a little unique. The 450 side of the team and the 250 side of the team, yes, they are both Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing, but they're not. There's a little bit of a common misconception when people talk about the 450 squad and re-upping riders. They're just like, you know what? Bobby Reagan's going to spend whatever money it takes to get this guy signed or that guy signed, just like they would with the 250 squad. They'll do whatever it takes, right? The team definitely puts in a lot of effort, but the 450 team is not Bobby Reagan's technically. Bobby Reagan and Brad Hoffman own the 250 side of the team. The 450 side of the team is technically basically Yamaha still. Yamaha has outsourced and contracted Brad Hoffman, Jeremy Coker, and these guys to operate their 450 squad. But the Monster money, the FMF money, your Progressive money, which is only on the 450 team because that's tied to Yamaha on some B2B, business-to-business situations, that's all Yamaha's budget. They basically assign it out to that team and are like, here's what we're willing to spend on riders. Here's what we're willing to do. Like your Cooper Webb, your Eli Tomac, those guys and Justin Cooper are signed directly to Yamaha, not to Star Racing. Further evidence of this is the year that Christian Craig raced a 250 indoor and a 450 outdoors. They literally did photos with him signing a different contract for 450 outdoors with Brad Hoffman. Because again, that was a contract with Yamaha. Yamaha pays the salaries. They pay the bills for the team. They pay the bonuses, etc., etc. And the team, while yes, Yamaha has viewed Star Racing as, hey, these are the guys that need to run it. They are successful. Look what they've done for us. There's also still a part where they have their hand in it and some of the decisions made. One other further evidence of that is how the program is run. The 250 engines and suspension, that whole 250 program is built at the farm at that brand new race shop facility they built. It's absolutely beautiful. I got to tour it about 2 years ago. Really phenomenal job they've done there, and they've added on since we've been there. The 450 side is different. The engines are still built in Cypress, California, albeit with Star helping with the development, what they want for electronics, what they want for combinations, etc., but is built by Yamaha employee Brian Kalma out of Yamaha's old race shop in Cypress. Those engines are shipped to Tomac in Colorado, shipped to the rig for the race bikes, they're shipped to the farm for Webb when they need them in J-Coupe, etc., but they're not built in Florida like the 250s are. The 450 suspension is still contracted out to KYB. Yamaha pays for that. So you see Johnny Yamada and Ricky Gilmore at the races, the KYB employees, they take care of the testing and the components. The 250 squad uses either a spring fork or PSF1 air fork, depending on what they want and what they're looking for with KYB. The 450 team has works components. They have a work shock with a different compression adjuster, full billet bodies, and they have LSF forks, as they're called, basically a hybrid air spring fork, which is not available to the 250 squad. Where I'm getting with this is Yamaha has a set budget. They already were trying to figure out the budget to get Cooper Webb through his raise he had in the second year of his contract, getting Tomac re-signed when they weren't 100% sure he was coming back, and getting J-Coupe's deal redone. Craig, at this point, from what we're aware, would be actually riding for the Star 250 side, riding for Bobby Reagan. So that will be a 450 built by the 250 squad in-house, similar to the bike they built for Justin Cooper to race a couple Supercrosses on 2 years ago. So again, Christian's bike would technically be a little bit different from the other three guys. That could come down to not having the work suspension. This would limit Christian with some of his options, potentially, you know, just spring fork, kit fork, air fork. The engine would be built in-house, maybe doesn't have works transmission, a few of those key works items. So again, that's kind of the interesting side here. This is very much a move by the Star 250 squad to bring Christian in. And there is even further rumors about the Deegans potentially even paying for some of Christian's salary. I won't get into that because that's just a rumor at this point. Who knows? Wouldn't shock us. Again, they have reasons to have Christian around. There is some guidance there for Haiden they believe that he will be valuable for. But as a whole, he will be valuable to the 250 team. So let's go into the second part of this video. Let's talk about the team lineup for next year and kind of clear that up. So starting with the 250 squad, who is still under contract. Of course, you have Haiden Deegan, who has a contract through 2025 with an option for 2026. This was a question we asked the team last year, and that was the information they gave us. So, of course, we'll still see Haiden on a 250 for all of next year. But when we get into 2026, it'll be interesting how they split that. And that'll come up in the third and final part of this video. You also have Daxton Bennett, who has a contract through 2025, but you would have to imagine with his current run of results, he will be in the hot seat next year to maintain that ride past 2025. You also have Nate Thrasher on the team, whose contract was actually expiring at the end of 2024. Mitch Payne in the Monster Energy Pro Circuit squad actually went after Nate Thrasher, was not successful. Nate ended up redoing a deal to stay, we believe, for another 2 years with Star. So those are kind of your staying group. You also have Jordan Smith and Styles Robertson, who are exiting the team at the end of this year. They had contracts that were expiring, and both of them happen to be going to Triumph Racing. We also have Nick Romano, whose contract is coming to an end and will not be re-upped by the team. He currently, as far as we're, does not have a home for 2025. There is interest from teams such as Club MX, Bar X, you know, to keep him on a Yamaha in some shape or form. There are other teams he's talking to, but nothing concrete has happened. Albeit as his results have been improving the last couple rounds, you'd have to imagine that hopefully Nick will be able to lock himself in a deal soon. On top of that, we also have a few other unique rider situations. We had Michael Moseman come in mid-year as a fill-in rider. He has a contract for 2025, but things have been quiet with further injuries with him. We'd have to imagine he's the one rider on the team that is in a unique situation because of the injuries. The team knew it when they hired him. There could be clauses. We'll see if he, depending on his health and stuff. As of right now, the plan is to have him in 2025, but you just kind of never know with his situation. Enzo Lopes is a bit of a mystery at this point. He was unable to race this year due to a continued elbow and nerve injury. He recently was on Steve Mathis's Pulp MX show and basically said the team told him if he ever wanted to try again and was healthy enough to race, they would give him a shot. But as of right now, he hasn't really figured out his health in the way that that will be possible. So slim chance he could be on the team next year if he figures it out, but we would lean towards no. So again, wrapping back, we have Deegan, Bennick, Moseman, and Thrasher on the team next year confirmed. That is 4 riders. The next 2, one of which popped up for outdoors, was Max Anstey signing a 2-year contract for 2025 and 2026. He was able to get out of his Firepower Honda Australian and World Supercross deal early to start midway through the outdoor season with the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing and start that relationship. But again, Anstey will be there in 25 and 26. The team also brought on another rider who they also were in a little bit of a contractual situation against the PC team on. Mitch Payne had also worked on a deal potentially with Pierce Brown, who is exiting the Troy Lee Designs Gas program. Ultimately, Pierce had the option of going to Star or PC, and he chose to go to Star. That, of course, is not announced yet because we aren't at the end of the racing season, but Pierce will be joining them for 25 and 26. So as of right now, they have a 6-man 250 lineup for the 250 squad. And then add in Christian Craig as a 450 rider who will be out of the 250 truck and on their technical program, putting him at 7 riders. Additionally, you also have a futures and amateur rider with Cole Davies, the Kiwi they signed, who will be an amateur pretty much fully through next year, maybe do 1 or 2 nationals, with the goal of having him go pro in 2026. Now let's separate it and talk about the 450 side, the factory Yamaha side that Star manages for them. Pretty much all the same faces. Again, Cooper Webb has another year on his contract. We all know famously he had an accelerator. The only thing we're waiting to see is what gear Webb will be in. It does not sound like he will be continuing with Thor, with the 2 primary options looking to be Fly or FXR. Eli Tomac will return. His contract will actually be announced sometime this week after this video will come out. Probably typical, it'll be announced as a Supercross only contract, but there's definitely options in there for him to do whatever he wants if he wants to continue through outdoors, SMX, etc. And then finally, Justin Cooper got some form of a re-up, albeit again, his gear situation might switch. Sounds like he may be switching from Alpine Stars to O'Neill in the gear side, but we'd expect him to be Alpine Star helmet, boots, and potentially Oakley goggles still. Something like that. That'll get figured out a little bit farther down. So 3 450 faces will still look the same, albeit, again, Tomax is just a 1-year extension. Webb's is through next year, but we know he has a 3rd-year option, and he's supposedly already working on a longer extension. We don't know if Jay Coops is a 1-year extension or a 2 as of yet. Now for the 3rd and final part of this video. Now this gets away from the rumor, and this is a lot of putting the puzzle pieces together and looking forward based on conversations we've had with people. Haiden Deegan's eventual move to the 450 class and how that relates to the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing squad. Again, Haiden has a contract for 2025. He has kind of stated his intentions are, sounds like to say 250 all through next year. Try to win a Supercross title, defend that Pro Motocross Championship, which he just won this year. But then it gets to 26. He has an option to stay with the team. And if I'm a betting man, I would say we see a similar path to the Lawrences, namely Jet, I should say. If he wins a Supercross title next year, he defends it at the beginning of 26 and potentially moves to the 450 for outdoors. It's a really good combination because a 450 is a lot harder to adapt to in Supercross and outdoors. By riding 250, especially if he rides West Coast, you get that gap in between to develop and test a 450, which really worked out quite well for Jet for his premier outdoor season on the big bike. But what does this mean for him, again, where he would actually be at? We know that there are other OEMs, particularly we've heard Kawasaki might be interested in Hayden's 450 services. Yamaha seems to have a budget that gives Star on the 450 squad. What we know roughly that Tomac and Webb, it's all less money than Tomac and Webb were paid at their prior jobs, but it's sort of under the pitch that, hey, we don't pay as much, the bonuses are great, and the bike and program is fantastic. So what if you do if you're the Deegans? Haiden will be able to command one of the biggest salaries at the time in the sport, but is that necessarily the only motivation? Under some conversations we've even had with Brian or people in his camp, it's sort of like, what do they need to make that next step? I think they have watched the Lawrences and how Dazzy and the Sons and their kind of inner circle has built the team they want inside of HRC. And if you're the Deegans, you have to imagine they're going to try to do something similar to get every last bit of performance they can out of the bike, the crew, and Haiden himself. So again, bit of my prediction here. Christian Craig is a perfect step-off point for them to have involved in the 250 program. Star eventually is going to want more control of that 450 program, the engines, the suspension. They have a great relationship with Yamaha, and it's going great, but they would probably want some more say down the road than what they have right now. By having Christian on that 450, it gets them time to compare it to the full works 450 versus some parts they may throw at it a little bit differently. It gets different people involved with testing separate from the 450 squad, get some different evaluation. Again, Haiden can measure that by being close with Christian, potentially riding the bike, and figure out what that transition period will look like. And it may give it may give Star Racing the proof and bargaining chip they need to go to Yamaha before Hayden's move and go, okay, this is what we want to do with this 450 program. Haiden wants this suspension technician. They want this mechanic. We want to do this extra with the bike. Again, Honda basically had that happen with the Lawrences. They had people around them from Geico. They had more say than the 450 program. It was a little bit stepped aside from HRC, and they had some extra control. And they were able to develop a bike. And as they moved 450, they developed a bike with some of the help of HRC, but also their own direction. And it has turned out to be extremely successful. So again, me just putting the puzzle pieces together and thinking about this Christian move could turn into something more that allows the Deegans, Bobby Reagan, everybody involved at Star to test the waters and start to develop a package, a program, communication, all the things they need to make the successful program for Deegan's eventual 450 debut that they all combined feel like they need to be competitive at the absolute top. Because again, these guys are not going in that class to just win occasionally be on podium. They're going to race for championships. That's their goal. And they've seen how some of their competition has done it, and they're going to do everything possible to have as much influence and as much control over their program and as much resources as they need to be that competitive. So again, that's my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments section below. A little bit of a longer rumor mill news break here, but we had a lot to cover. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks as always for watching.